Hello, everybody, and once again, I'd like to welcome you back to the podcast. As you will see, we have a guest today, and I'll call her a very special guest today, and I'm going to call her a very special guest, not only, of course, because everybody is special, but because of what she is going to do. She's going to do something that's going to make things helpful for everybody else, for all of you, and she'll explain that in a little bit. So, here on the podcast, of course, what we're always about is the deep exploration of who and what we are. And so, in that, we explore many different things. But what we try to do, of course, is we try to make sure that what we do is use language, use examples that help to empower all of you guys, right? So that you can move in the directions that you want to move in very powerful ways that are satisfying and fulfilling for you. Okay. So not only is that my journey, it's my guest's journey as well, right? This is something that's very important to them as well. So the individual that I have with me today, her name is Huenu Solsona, and she's doing something that I think you'll appreciate. Certainly I appreciate it. I think a lot of people will appreciate it. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to let her introduce herself, talk a little bit about her journey and what she's going to do and how we believe, her and I, that this will be helpful for all of you as you move forward in your journeys. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Chuck. Thank you so much for having me here. It's so great to be with you.
Absolutely. Very nice to have you.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So to answer a bit your question, first of all, I love your podcast. I love I love the theme of it. Just understanding ourselves and who we are. It just kind of changes everything in life when you really deeply understand who you are and why you came here, right? And I suppose that's also what I'm trying to achieve with what I'm doing. But how I came about to do it, which I'll talk about in a minute, is that in 2009, my oldest brother, who was very close to me, passed away in an accident. So it was obviously very shocking. And at that time, I had been, I suppose, a spiritual person, but when your life is going just fine, you sometimes don't need to delve into spirituality too much. And when he died, I really wondered where he was and if he could hear me and if I could connect with him. And I really started looking into, life after death. And I started with some books on life after death and hypnotherapy, and past life regression and all that stuff. And it really just opened this really big spiritual door for me. That was the beginning of my real spiritual journey. And sure. And I mean, that was what, 14 years ago now. I've done a lot of things since. It's been a wonderful journey that I'm thankful to my brother for, having introduced me, I suppose, in that way. And in that journey, which really included a lot of meditation and yoga and tons of books and, podcasts and YouTubes and you name it, I came across channeling. And the first time I came across it was through some friends, very spiritual friends that I hold in high regard, to be honest. And it was Bashar, so Dara Anka, who channels Bashar. And they said to me, literally, they said to me, this guy channels an alien. And I said, oh, come on, guys,
Right.
and yeah, and these guys were telling me about it. I said, are you serious? This is amazing. So obviously, I checked it out, and sure enough, Bashar is, and I call them now extra dimensional beings because that's the more correct word, and it makes more
Sure.
sense to, channel an extra dimensional being. Um, but I really followed Bashar for quite a while, and saw pretty much everything that was online about him. Loved it, really loved the information. Found out that Abraham Hicks was also, channeled. The secret was from Abraham, channeled by
Right.
Esther Hicks, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't know that. I had seen the movie already and read the book. Um, and we a couple of friends said that they were going to Howard, that there was this channeler and that they had hired, I suppose, and there was a group of people going to this house and we could ask her questions. And I was like, oh wow, amazing. So I went, and there were about 20 of us, and we each got a chance to ask one question. And these were really difficult questions, in my opinion. Questions like, who are we? What happens when we die? Why is there, pain and suffering in the world? And all of these quite difficult, I would say, questions to answer. And, she answered them beautifully. I mean, it made so much sense. And I just started understanding the nature of reality, more about myself, more about this life, and I just got more interested. I ended up having a session with her. It was on donation, and it was fantastic. I mean, it really kind of blew my mind. And she said at the end of the conversation that she was a waitress. And I almost died. I just thought, how could you be a waitress? You should be famous. This is
Right.
just, everybody should know this information. So then I went to, well, I had already gone onto her website, and it kind of made sense to me at the time, because, and this is what happens with, unfortunately, a lot of spiritual websites. It was quite confusing, right? She did a bit of this and a bit of that. A lot of these people that are very connected, right? They can do many things because they work with energy. So they do Reiki, and they do whatever, chakra healing, and
Right.
energy this, energy that. And it was confusing, and it wasn't the best looking website. And I said, oh my gosh, can I please help you? Because I'm an entrepreneur, and I've done many businesses in my life. That's what I do. I'm a workaholic as well. And I said, I just, if you tweaked this and that, you would do so much better. And anyway, you guys in the States don't use WhatsApp so much, and I live in South Africa. We use a lot of WhatsApp. And I said, can I just quickly WhatsApp you and just voice note you, because that'll be easy for me. And she said, oh, you can, save it and Google it and send it on Google. And I was like, oh, that sounds complicated. And I never did it. And but I kind of always remembered this girl, and how could she possibly be a waitress, right? And then fast forward a few years, I was looking to sell my business. I'd been running an outdoor cinema for like 9 years. It was very successful, but I was getting tired. I was pregnant. And I just said that, okay, my next business has to be to help people. And it has to be to help. In fact, I really wanted to help animals. But I wanted to help animals globally, like the entire world. And I said, well, I don't know
Small
how I'm going to do
projects.
that, because, yeah, small projects, yeah. But I'd really put out the intention, and I wasn't ready to start my business. I still hadn't even sold my cinema. And yeah, and then one night I was sitting there in meditation, and I got a full download of this idea and this business, including the name, the logo, the colors, exactly how I was going to do it, the entire thing. And I was just sitting there with my eyes closed, and this came to me, and I thought, oh wow, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want to do. And I started typing it on my computer. I was already doing automatic writing by that stage, because I was already, I don't know, I was like absorbing a lot of channeling material, and I was already typing with my eyes closed, stuff that used to come through. And so this came through. I wrote it all down. And I mean, that was 3 years ago. And I've kind of been doing that since. I've been, writing it. And obviously now I've got this business, and it's basically an online marketplace exclusively for channelers, right? um, and I'm really just kind of helping that girl, and all these other channelers that are so talented, that have so much amazing stuff to give to people, that is so helpful and so empowering. And I can't think of anything better that I could do with my life. And I love it. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I can tell you lots more about it, I guess.
So you and I, of course, both know, since we've both done this for a while, that there has been, and I'm just going to phrase it like this, there's been an explosion of individuals who channel in various forms in the past 5 years, especially decade, but I would say 5 years, many, right?
Yeah.
Now, certainly I've come to understand that, and of course things are changing a little bit because of course it's easier to connect now, I guess I'll say, with the higher mind, deeper us, wider us, whatever you want to say, than maybe it was 20 years ago. So I don't think it takes necessarily as much time, quote unquote, as it used to for an individual to connect with those parts of themselves or whatever aspect of self, spirit, whatever we want to say, they're connecting with, as was once true. Okay. But
Yes.
still, what we want to do is we want to make sure that when we are accessing information from individuals that channel, that they have gotten to the place where they can provide nice information. They've gotten to the place where, by and large, what they can do is kind of get out of their own way, right? And it's not really necessarily just their beliefs that are being shared with individuals, but it's broader stuff, right? It's things that go beyond that, you know? And so, in that, I think that a platform like that will be very helpful because there are, you know, if you go to YouTube now, there are many, many individuals at all various stages of what they're up to that you can run into. You know, and certainly like Instagram and whatever it might happen to be, there's all sorts of people who are sharing their information. Now, of course, that's a great journey for all those individuals, right? But the thing is that as certainly I learned in this journey, and as I'm sure you're familiar with as well, there are ways that you can make your journey longer, you know, or there are ways that you can kind of make your journey flower and blossom for you quicker than it would have otherwise. And certainly having information that is really nice information that will interact with you, provide you with insight through another individual in this way to help you move forward in whatever challenges you have is a very nice thing to be able to have. And so if you know that you can go to a place like the platform that you're developing and you don't have to worry about it. You can just trust in that, knowing that, you know, you with your experience and the individuals that you surround yourself with, having experience with these individuals, knowing that the information that was shared with them has helped their life, people can come, they don't have to worry about that. You know, they can go, okay,
Yeah.
just who does it feel like I resonate with? And I can choose whoever I resonate with. I don't have to worry about it. And so that's kind of nice.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. For us, the platform is called Orykl. For me, the most important thing is to make sure that people that are on it are the real deal, obviously. And like you say, it's about them getting out of the way. So I've had many, many channeling sessions of, I don't know, it won't be hundreds, but dozens, right? And what I look for in a channeler, when I say it's a good channeler, I guess, is exactly that. How much can they get out of the way? How much can the person get out of the personality, get out of the way? That's what a channeler does. And that's why I really love it, because it's not, in as much as, there's people with amazing points of views and, great ideas, this isn't the human speaking. This isn't filtered through the human mind. This is higher minds. This is like sort of divine information. This is higher realms, higher dimensions, right? And it is being channeled through this person. So this person is actually speaking, but they are not speaking. It's the entity, the being, or the energy that's actually speaking. And the information, by now, I'm very, very good at discerning the channelers. I mean, it's just like everything, it's just experience. And I can tell there's a certain language, there's a certain message that comes through. And I can tell whether it's a good channeler or not. And again, that's not the right word, good channeler or not. It's just how clean and clear and yeah, pure the information is, how much the person can get out of the way. And when they do that, the information that comes through is pretty amazing. It's just, as I said, very it will resonate true to the listener, because we all know the truth inside. We are connected. We can never
Right.
disconnect. We are connected to our higher selves. We are connected to all that is. And so when the truth is spoken, we will resonate. In fact, when you hear a channeler speak, you tend to go, oh yes, oh yes, 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 because you know it deep inside of you. And it's also those people that are more connected that will resonate even more, right? Ultimately, we don't need a channeler. We can connect directly ourselves, and we can channel. We can all channel, but life is life. We're having this physical experience, and our mind really gets in the way sometimes. And so it's really amazing to just speak to these people, or to speak to the beings that they connect to give us these truths and these perspectives also that we don't necessarily see all the time when we are in this physical existence. So perspective is everything, right? And so to be shown a different perspective, which is the perspective of your higher self as well, is pretty amazing and very helpful, and above all, very, very empowering, because it is what we've all sort of read and heard about. We really are creating everything around us, and it is all always an inner journey and an inner shift that needs to happen if we want things to change. It's never on the outside, it's always on the inside. And so I don't know, I just find them super helpful, and, and amazing, and just very blessed to be doing this.
I really identify with what you said a little earlier. And I think this is one of the things that individuals who've done this for a while, who've walked this journey for a while, this is the place that I think that all of them get to. The ability
Mm.
to discern the information that someone is sharing, the
Yeah.
ability to feel the energy that's being shared as that's going on. Certainly, I've experienced that. It sounds like you've experienced that. And I know, because what happens is that when you do this, of course, what you gather around you a large number of friends that do something similar. They're familiar with similar things, they do similar things. And so, of course, you exchange experiences with all those individuals. And so, this seems to be a common experience for people who've been on this path for a while. It's easy to tell if somebody is sharing what's coming through their beliefs, or if it's something that's beyond that. And the feeling state that occurs when you are, whether it's in their personal presence or if it's through a recording, it really doesn't seem to make a difference at all. When you're in the presence of an individual that's channeling, and that information is coming from a place that's beyond what we use, quote unquote, physically, you can tell there's a feeling that's there, right? And they have, like you were saying, an outlook, an approach to what it is. The way that they express things, especially in the beginning, is sometimes very surprising, because you don't expect someone to say that for the question that you just asked. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
never considered that, and people find themselves in that place, because that, of course, is what it's all about, right? Giving you a broader perspective on how to look at the situation that you've got going on in your life. And I know that,
Yes.
for me, and I think for everybody who interacts with channeled sources, one of the things that's very nice is that I think that their goal is kind of the same. And it's really
Yeah.
to introduce each individual to themselves, and in that, it's not that, like you say, we've certainly created this physical experience for ourselves to have an experience in. But in that also, pretty much everybody uses this type of language. What it's also about in this time period of ours, in this transition shifting period of ours, is to become aware of much more of ourself now within that experience, right? To move beyond this experience of seeming like we're separated from the rest of us, to having an experience where we become increasingly aware of that, and then bring all of that into our quote unquote physical experience, and now express ourselves in a very different way than what we've been doing before. And so when you
Mhm.
hear individuals, and of course that's approached in so many different ways, like you've become familiar with also, various channels. This is something that I became familiar with too a long time ago, is that, and individuals who are early in this can be a little bit confused by this. Why does this channel say it this way and this channel says it another way? Because everybody out there doesn't come to information the same way, of course. They've all been influenced in
Mm.
their life in different ways, right? They resonate with a message in this way, not necessarily so much in that way. And so what we have, of course, on the planet is a broad spectrum of channels now, and each of them coming from a particular vantage point, expressing information in a particular way that will resonate with certain individuals, maybe not with others. But especially in this time period,
Exactly.
I think there's always someone to resonate with. And that's what's so neat about what you guys are doing. In bringing together a group of individuals like that, you're allowing people to have a, we'll just call it a marketplace right now, right? Where what they can do is they can listen to some maybe little bits, or I don't know how you guys can do it, of these individuals and go, oh, I really resonate with this individual, right? And that way,
Mm.
you don't have to spend so much time trying to figure out, well, do I really like this person's message? You hear a name, someone suggests something to you, whatever. I think it'll really help individuals' processes.
Yeah, I think that for me, it's super important that when people come to Oracle, they know that everyone on there is good enough. Everyone on there is actually great. And then their job is to, like you say, find somebody that just resonates with them. And you could resonate with somebody just because you like their energy, or you like their story, or you like the way they channel, but you just resonate. And I know, funny enough, I also have been connecting with all kinds of beings myself, because I'm not just, I've done like learn how to channel courses. So I don't say I'm channeling because it's not in my interest to actually do it for other people, to be honest. I just do it for myself. But I have been told that it isn't my job necessarily to get people on the platform that I like, that I would go for coffee with, but it's my job to get people that are truly channeling, like as pure as possible. And that's what I
Right.
do. And it's interesting because I might, again, from the channels that we have, I might be best friends with this one or go for coffee with this one. I might not like hang out with all of them. I might not like I don't want to say it that way, but I might not like everybody equally, because I have
Right.
my preference, because I'm like a certain way. But certain people who certainly resonate with different people, and some of the channelers have had like a complete different past, like a childhood, or
Right.
a childhood where they were grew up in nature and they were just very, in tune with the elements, or somebody had an NDE, and she went through like
Right.
that experience of dying, and all of a sudden, so it's different stories, different people resonate with different channelers. And this is exactly what I wanted to do, is just have a buffet that people can choose from. Not everybody eats the same food at the buffet, and that's what's great. But you know that everything on the buffet is great, and that's what's nice, is that you can come and know that, okay, anybody on here is going to be great. Now let me just choose the one that feels right for me. And
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, so much. I know that, in my exploration, that's exactly what I've had happen to me, is that there have been a variety of different channeled sources that I have moved through, I guess I'll say, right? And because,
yeah,
in the beginning, and I think this is what's really neat, is that the higher you, the wider you, the higher mind, whatever you'd like to say, it knows exactly how this needs to be presented to you in the beginning, right? To catch your interest. And then
yeah,
it knows how to keep going. It knows how to continue to present information to you, however that information shows up, that it knows, because it knows you entirely, what you're going to be interested in next. It knows how
yes,
you've developed. It knows the things that you're using to filter your information from, all of that stuff. And so what it does is it brings you then the opportunity to move that next step, and then that next step. And so, of course, that happened in my life. I think it happens in everybody's life. So, yeah, certainly there are sources that I once was very aligned with. And now it's like, okay, yeah, it was great information. But the thing is that, what I want to do is I want to move into this. I want to do things that are a little bit different now. This information seems to build on the stuff that I was familiar with before. And so
yeah,
now it's more interesting for me, and individuals like
yeah.
you
I
were
mean,
saying, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so yeah, I love what you just said, because we do change. We go through life. Our life changes. Things happen. Our interests change, and when I first started listening to channeled material, it was more about the nature of reality, right? So I was fascinated by it. Now I think I've got it. um, and I'm pretty fascinated with extra dimensional beings. And as you probably know, there's a whole bunch of them. And
Right.
I'm interested in actually asking them about their life. Exactly what, I mean,
Sure.
these beings are not necessarily physical beings, some of them can be. Um, and that is really fascinating. In fact, one of my favorite channelers, who's not on our platform yet because he only does groups now, but he channels a woman 700 years in our future. And I asked her about her life, and I'm going to tell you the story because it's pretty cool. She is kind of, she said, like an influencer. Like, think about the influencers that we have today. So she's kind of like, and she said that it actually, social media is the beginning to actually of stuff that's going to evolve in really cool ways to create our reality. So what she does is she gets, gosh, and I'm going to get this wrong now, but I think it's about 30 people in her house. um, and they all meditate. And by the way, she can create her reality. Like, she can move walls. Okay, she can
Sure.
create spaces, like immediately manifest that immediately in her house. Anyway, they come and they discuss possible outcomes for humanity. So they think about like a few possible things where humanity could go, and then they meditate on that together, right? And I think they do 3 times 15 minutes meditation, and then they discuss it. They go home, they think about it, and they come back like a week later. I could be getting this wrong in terms of like exact dates and
Sure.
time. Sorry
Doesn't
for,
make any difference
but
really.
it doesn't really matter too much. Yeah. And but then they come back, and then after having spent some time and thinking about, they decide collectively what future for humanity they want, and then they envision it and they kind of manifest it together as a collective, and they're kind of leaders in society, and other people follow them through kind of social media, kind of. So it's very interesting, right? How literally they create their reality. And this is, she said 700 years in our future. So that was a pretty interesting one. And I'm interested in those. But most people that have channeling sessions are also, most of them are interested in themselves, understandably so. I mean, I've already asked all those questions. But, finding your life purpose is a huge one for people.
Sure.
And understanding, and also like some problems that people are going through, or repetitive destructive patterns that many people have. um, but yeah, but my point was that we do change, our interests change. We might go to a first channeling session to overcome grief, or to
Right.
um, understand why something happened in our lives. And then as we understand that, and as we understand ourselves, we can get interested in all kinds of different things. There's some channelers that can tell us lots of things about the history of humanity, Atlantis, and all kinds of
Right.
things, the pyramids. It's fascinating. I mean, for me, it's fascinating.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's very interesting. So a couple of things as you were talking. One is, as you mentioned, this woman that's 700 years in our future, quote unquote, right in linear time, speaking anyway.
Right.
So my mind
Yes.
flashes to another individual that I'm familiar with. That's the same thing in linear time that was introduced to me and others through an individual that you began with, which is Bashar. And so there's
Right.
this individual that's named Willa that same thing, 700 years in our future, but it's a different context, right? So what's interesting is that when you've been on this journey for a while, and if you've, I'll just phrase it this way, run into the right individuals, what you become familiar with is that there are many, and I'm just going to call them this for now, there are many timelines that Earth is taking, that Earth has taken, right? And so you're free then, you become familiar that you're free then to choose those after a while, right? And it's really about
Mm.
what you're doing, of course, which chooses that. So, my journey was interesting, and I very much understand what you said when you began that just now, where your interests have shifted to other things that are going on. So for me, it became okay, I'm very familiar with all this stuff. I really left behind most of my personal challenges, not all of them, but things are pretty smooth for me most of the time. I'm really not challenged by a lot of stuff any longer. Every now and then, yeah, fine. So I'm going, okay, so then what's next? What's next in my life? And so then, of course, like what happens? And I had spent a little time with Bashar earlier in my life, not a lot, right? I was more drawn to other individuals at that time. All of a sudden, Bashar comes back into my life, and to me, it's a very exciting thing to me to okay. At this point, what I want to do is I want to become familiar with these other aspects of self that we call extraterrestrials, right? That will interact in my reality thread anyway on this planet with us from a place that's a vantage point of understanding themselves in the same way that we're heading. And in that, we're going to have this really sweet interaction with these and discover ourselves and be able to do so many different things, right? And
Yeah.
so, right, there's, the thing is that channeled sources out there offer information from individuals in all stages of their journey and exploration. Some individuals will offer information for people who are just beginning, and most of the time, as you mentioned, that's where they are. They can be very challenged by their life at that point in time. They can have a lot of things that they need to discover about themselves, on a lot of things they need to discover about how to move beyond those things, how to deal with those things, how to shift their life so that it feels nicer to them, so they're not quite so challenged by things. So then they can start to explore other aspects of what's out there, right? It's not just so focused on the immediate, I'll just call it physical things that are going on in your life, right? And of course, we can both, I guess, at this point, assure individuals, certainly I can, and I know you can, that will happen. This information will do that for you. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have a part in that. You have very much a part in that, right? But it'll help you to see things, as you're aware, in ways that never really occurred to you, in where you are right now in your process and in your journey, right? And so this is what I have found channel information has been so very good at doing, at providing information that I was like, wow, I never even thought to approach it that way,
Yeah.
and help. Information that talks about how you're feeling inside, and this individual has no idea who you are, and they're talking about exactly what you're challenged with, how you feel about that challenge, and they mention to you little things that have occurred to you someplace, but you really didn't pay attention to. And then after they talk about it, you go, oh, yeah, I remember thinking about that last week or whatever it might happen to be. And they already know, right? And they share that information with you. And so then, yeah, it's this great opportunity to not only begin the process, but then continue the process and expand into the process. And through that, of course, have a much different experience of life than what you began with. So it's so nice in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, fully agree. And a lot of our channelers, I would say most of them also tend to give some practical tips for people to do afterwards.
Right.
So one thing is the information, and like you say, we do also play a part in it. I mean, we can get this information and just sit at home and have the exact same day we had yesterday, and it's
Yes.
not of much use. But the idea is that you actually do something with that information, and yeah, I mean, look, this information, the tips do come from also these higher sources. It's actually a good question to ask, exactly what can I do, or how do I change this, or yeah. But I would say, like, most of the time there's like some practical things that you're left with. Also, actually, our sessions are recorded and you can listen back because there's so much information. We
Right.
usually suggest to people that they don't take notes, that they have some questions, written down, and usually in order of priority. Sometimes, like you had mentioned, they get answered before you ask them, like, because usually
Sure.
when they start channeling, there's about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more, where they'll just speak. And very, very often the questions that you had just get answered in those first 5 minutes. But yeah, but it's a good idea to listen. I listen with my eyes closed. I usually just close my eyes and I just try and take the information straight to my heart, and like not analyze it too much, just see how it feels, just like absorb it with my heart, kind of. And then if I want to listen to it, it's recorded, and then it's nice because when you listen back to it, there's just so much, and you miss, like in an hour session, there's a lot that gets said, and you can't.
Right.
And taking that note takes you away from it. When you take that note, you got to think about what you're writing, and so
Right.
you might miss what's being said. So I like to just listen with eyes closed, and you can then re-listen. Then you can take notes, obviously, and listen as many times as you want. And it's a good idea to actually listen back, every few weeks or even months. You'll get like new nuggets of information, which
Right.
is great. We also have, it's not ready yet, but we have, with all this AI, well, it's ready, but it's not live. There's a transcript, not a straight transcript. That basically gives you the bullet points of what was discussed, the action points that from the session, and then like a
Right.
summary of the session, which is pretty cool. So in like a few weeks, this will be live as well. So that's nice.
Yes. And I like the idea of listening back. I think that individuals who've been on this journey for a while, one of the things that you come to understand about stuff, because from the regular physical vantage point, you think that a book has the same words in it all the time. You think that a movie is the same movie all the time. You think that a recording is the same, and it's not. Of course, we come to understand that after a while. You listen back to something, and there is two parts to it, like that. You listen back to something, and it can be that what you're doing is hearing what you didn't hear the first time around, but you could also be hearing something that wasn't even there the first time around. It's a different recording now, right? Because of course you've become a different individual, and now the recording is going to be different because you're not the same individual. And so, and what it'll do, of course, it'll provide you with information that now helps you move from the place you've established yourself in into a different place. And
Yeah.
so I know that one of the things that was great along the lines of what you were saying is that, when I was in graduate school, so many times we just got notes for the class, for the lecture. So we didn't have to write down notes. They understood that as well. You need to focus entirely on what's going on, because you don't want to miss things, right? Because you don't know what you're going to hear if you're paying attention. That's going to strike you in just a particular way, right? And if you're taking notes or something like that, or if you're distracted, and I think that that's, I'm going to mention this too, is that when you do this, I'm going to suggest try to find a time where nobody's going to bother you. When you're especially first having the session, and then even when you're listening back, that let your partner know, whoever it is, your significant other, if you have children, maybe please, I can have a little quiet time or whatever. That's such a nice thing to be able to do, to not, first of all, have to worry that you may be interrupted, and then not to be interrupted. So you can really just focus and feel into the experience that you're having, and have that experience do as much for you as it possibly can do. So those types of things I think are very nice for individuals to be able to do too.
Yeah, I mean, when you book a session through Oracle, there's a presentation that we send you before with some suggestions, and one of them is exactly that: try and be alone. It's, for me, the best is to be really alone at home, because then you're not
Mhm.
worried about somebody knocking on the door and something like that. But not everybody can do that, so that's fine as long as you're not going to be bothered and you feel comfortable in that space. And also a little meditation before helps. We have a thing called the Mind Spa, which is a 30-minute meditation. It's actually amazing channeled music by one of our channelers who's you can also channel music. It was a once off take. She never did it again. It was just once off, and it's her voice with like singing bowls, and it's pretty incredible. It's like it clears all the chakras as well, and some visuals. And so it's whether you do that or whether you do something else, just a little meditation, just to center yourself, and just to breathe and just be nice and relaxed, because yeah, it just helps you to integrate again that information straight to the heart. So yeah, and then
It's very nice.
afterwards, it's also a good idea to just sit there and like like just chill and not rush off anywhere either, just to think a little about what was said, and just also take it into your heart. And you can use your head later. I mean, you'll use your head for sure, but it's nice to use the heart to receive the information, and then you can dissect it all you want when you can listen to it again.
It's kind of like once you become familiar with it, it's kind of the common denominator, utilizing your heart space to interact with individuals and to accept information from individuals. It seems like it's the I'll just call it the universal translator. It's like it connects with anybody. Doesn't matter where they are in reality, where they are in the universe, whatever it might happen to be. It doesn't matter if it's another physical individual, if it's an animal, it makes no difference, right? It's like if you come from that spot, if that is open, then the experience you're going to have, of course, is a very nice, connected, and collaborative experience. So that is so very important, I think. Um, yeah,
Definitely.
it's yes, it's so very nice,
The heart, I mean, I do so many meditations, and lately it's all about the heart, and there's so many I actually sometimes laugh with, not laugh, but I think like some people like have a certain meditation way, and it's got to be this way or that way. And to be honest, I think it's 8 billion types of meditation. It's whatever
right?
feels right for you. It has to feel good. But I think always focusing on the heart space is, for me, it's an easy one, because it just removes my head from the equation. It's just easier for me not to think if I focus on the heart space, like I physically focus on my heart. And I just imagine, I mean, this is just a technique, but like imagine this light just expanding and getting bigger. And I just, yeah, breathe into that space. And it's just a lot easier. And I do that before the channelings as well. Um, and yeah, and it helps me. But even if I
Yes,
were to listen with the head, it still works.
right. It does still work. It
Yeah,
has to work because really, so many of us, that's how we start so many times is we listen with the head,
yeah,
because we really don't know
yeah,
how to pull the rest into it. It's like you're immersed in this life of, all the beliefs that we have about what the world's about and how you approach the world and why you approach the world the way that you do. And so, yeah, you
mm,
can't almost help but listen with the head, the first, who knows how many
yeah,
times. It depends on the person, of course. Yes, yeah, but when you can
yeah,
do
yeah.
that, when you can
Mm.
shift,
No, I was going to
you know,
say that I don't know why I thought about this, but another nice thing about channeling is that very often they can go, or they do go back into previous lives and find blockages that could be coming from these lives. And it's pretty amazing. Sometimes it's very clearing and cleansing. It's something that there's all kinds of situations, but some people carry a lot of stuff from a particular life that was very intense in their lives, and this can go back and clear that up. So it's very powerful, and there's also a lot of energy clearing that happens. Sometimes not all channels, but like sometimes they will ask you permission if they can just realign you, and realign your energy, and you feel it after the session. You just light. I mean, like sometimes I feel like I'm literally lighter. When you like feel like you're walking on the moon, kind of thing. Um, and you just feel like just brighter, and just like something's been lifted off. So yeah, it's not just the information. There's just a lot more stuff that happens, especially when people have these repetitive patterns that you just seem
right?
to be like, I don't know, whether you lose your job all the time, or you go for the wrong person, or something that you're like, geez, sometimes that stuff comes from other lives. Not always, but sometimes it can. So,
I think what a
and
lot of
channeling can definitely look. I mean, that you can't get anywhere else. You can't. A psychologist can't really help you with that.
right. It's I think that a lot of individuals, especially in the beginning, they don't really understand that we're connected to, again, all of what exists, and there's no boundaries there.
Yeah.
There's nothing that closes the door. And so when you find yourself heading down a particular road, when you find yourself influenced by certain things, when you find yourself utilizing particular beliefs, you're going to tie into all those incarnations that are out there that have a same thing going on, and it's going to support that particular vantage point. It's going to make it a stronger experience because what you've done is you've opened certain doors that let certain energy in, because that's where you are right now, and it's going to be supported. And so the thing about, I think, being able to understand that there's so many incarnations going on out there, and there are all sorts of themes in all those incarnations, and you're free, of course, through what your experience is right now, to tap into those. Or what you can do, of course, is on the other end of things, you can tap into the ones that are supportive of you as well. and you can utilize information like through channeled sources or psychotherapists or whatever it might happen to be. And usually they have a spiritual bent if that's what they're doing in psychotherapy, to help you to realize that you can connect to those other types of incarnations that you have, and utilize that very, very effectively. It's such a one of the things that I think is nice about it is that when you start to get information that shows up like that, when you start to get experiences that shows up like that, it broadens your perspective on who you actually are. It
Mm.
helps you to understand that, yes, I'm more than just this me in physical reality. There are other versions of me, I guess maybe we can call them in this particular point, that are out there that exist right now. In fact, a huge number of expressions of me out there that are existing right now. And they're having all sorts of different experiences. And because of, I guess maybe we'll
Yeah.
call it your vibration, your resonance, whatever you want to say, you're going to resonate with certain of those more than you are with others. And of course, then what's going to happen is it's going to be like a supportive system. Now, it can be supporting your challenges, which, makes things maybe a little bit more difficult. And you can certainly identify that. You can go, okay, here's these other things that are going on, because really that's the door that I've opened up. Now, again, it's not somebody's fault. These are challenges that all of us have, of course, as we're in this physical experience. But what you can also do with
Yeah.
those individuals and then go, yeah, but you also have these other incarnations out there that are doing these types of things that you can tie into. And they can help you to move beyond those things, right? Because the energy, in fact, you might even call them, if you want to, because it's difficult for us not to think in these terms, future yous. And you can go, okay, there's a future you out there that's already worked with this problem that you have right now. And so from that vantage point, they understand how to get through it. And all you need to do is be, oh, well, not that it's always that easy, but in a simplistic way of saying it, all you need to do is to be open to that. Go, okay, I know there's a me out there that's already dealt with this issue, right? And be open to having that information show up for you, right? And it can give you the courage, the strength, the
Yeah.
insight, the information, whatever. There's so much that can show up in that way.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, a lot of these concepts are hard for some people, myself included, sometimes to wrap our head around, especially the concept of no time, which there is
Yes.
no time, but we are living in this, and it's really difficult. But one thing I really like to do sometimes in my meditation is to imagine my future self with whatever it is that I want to achieve, right? Having, being there, and really visualizing as much as I can of that future self. And that future self of me is coming to me. And I think about it this way, that she, me, is um, coming to me at this present time to help me to get there.
Right.
So it's almost like I'm not imagining her, like she's coming to me to tell me, hey, this is me, and helping me today to get to where I am there. So it's like sort of the other way around. And I do this quite often, and sometimes it just comes, like I'm not like consciously thinking, but like, oh, there's me in the future. I am coming to me right now. So like the timelines, kind of mix. I
Yes.
am coming to me right now, and now I'm one step closer because of that. Sometimes this happens just before I fall asleep or early in the morning. Like lately, I just every morning I wake up and I'm telling myself these things, and I know that I've been dreaming and a lot's happened, while I've been asleep. But just before I fall asleep, that I more consciously do it. And then in the morning, sometimes it just happens that I wake up and I'm thinking this, right? Um, but
It's nice.
yeah, it's pretty cool to think that there's just so much more than this physical reality, isn't it? I mean, it's just like much more interesting because
Right.
after a while, life gets a little bit like, oh, it's a bit boring. Like this is just so much more exciting. And when you start, and when you start playing with it, and when you start like
Right.
experiencing it, it actually starts being like really real, and like you start having these pretty cool experiences that
Yes.
are like not really possible if you weren't playing in that field, if you know what I mean. And it just gets better and better. And
That's
it's something that you'll never actually know it all, because we can't as
right.
human beings know it all. So it'll always be more fun to be had. You'll never like
Yes.
get to like, oh, now I know it all. Now I'm gonna go back to like my job and you know I don't know,
Yeah, well, that's one
shopping
of the
or
things
whatever.
that I've come to understand, through a number of channeled sources is that, there's a term that when you're in this for a length of time, you become familiar with, and the term is all that is, which is really that, all that is.
Yeah.
But all of the sources that I'm familiar with say that all that is not a finished product. All it is continually to expand in particular ways all the time. And so, of course, we're part of that expansion as well. And so, yeah, it's such an interesting. And to me, one of the things that does make this journey, this particular exploration, really nice is all the various types of experiences that start to show up for you. Some of them are just like, regular experiences, or a little bit more, part of your everyday life. It's like, you're driving down the road and you get this little tug from, yourself. You need to move into the right lane, and at first you don't, and then, everybody in your lane stops, and you're sitting there for 20 minutes because there's a car accident up there and everybody in the other lane is still going. If you just would have
Yeah.
paid attention, that would be you. And so there are
Yeah.
those types of things that happen. And then there are the things that are really cool that happen as well. And I think so many of us now that have walked this journey for 15, 20 years, whatever, especially if we've really gotten excited about it and folded it into our lives, we have these experiences too, this are really, really neat experiences that really show us that, there is so much going on here beyond what we used to think life was about. And maybe a lot of people still kind of see things that way. And so,
Mm.
what
And
I'll tell people a lot of times in the podcast is that, there's just pay attention to all the little impulses, all the little impressions, all the little thoughts, whatever might happen to be, however you phrase it, that show up in your life, and act on them, do something with them, because that part of you that's giving you that stuff is paying attention. you know do you
yeah.
care that I'm giving you information? Are you listening to it? Are you willing to act on it? We know, both of
Mm.
us, how powerful acting on what's given to you actually is, right? It brings
Yeah.
more and then bigger things, right? And so there's this
Mm.
huge, very sweet flow that happens, that then is what your life becomes now. It's not just, oh, I've got this life that I'm struggling in, and every now and then I get something that's nice that shows up in my life. And it doesn't, like you said before, mean that we're not going to have no challenges in our life. Certainly there are going to be challenges there, but they take a different tenor as well. They feel different. And we know, because
Yeah.
of our past experiences, I'll suggest anyway, that when they show up, we know that there's really something neat that's going to happen on the other side of that. When we're done with that challenge, we're going to understand things in a way that we didn't as the challenge shows up. And we know that, we trust that. And so now when the challenge shows up, we don't balk at the challenge. We don't go, oh my God, I wish this wasn't here. It's like, it's almost an excitement to have the challenge show up, because, well, what kind of new information, new parts of me, and am I going to become aware of once I'm through this, or even as you start to get into it? So it becomes a very different thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's fine. Yeah, there's two things that come to mind there. Like, I when I drive and I drive a certain way, and there's not often, but maybe once a month, once every 2 months, maybe there's an accident, or you have to go a different route, or here, just recently it was raining tons, and a tree fell down or whatever. I get excited. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm going to drive a different way. So let's see what I discover, because there's got to be something, I'm going to discover a new route, or I'm going to, I don't know, it'll be a different way, to get home. And by its mere existence, it's going to be different, right? But I get excited about what I'm going to discover, something new. And I swear, almost without fail, something really cool, like, oh, look at this was here, or like, hey, this is beautiful, I should come this way, or I don't know, there's always something. So that's one thing, it's quite nice. And the other thing I do is, in order to trust, you were saying, trust those impulses that you get, a good exercise is to actually act upon it, right? And like consciously say, okay, I got this urge. I don't know if it's what it is, but should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? Okay, I'm going to do it. If it works out, quote unquote, and you all of a sudden like, oh, that was a good thing, write it down and start keeping a record of all these things that were intuition, were nudges that worked out really well, because you'll get more confident, right? And you go, okay, this is
Right.
great. So let me listen. And you start becoming a little bit more, attuned to the nudges, and you start really getting excited about it and kind of liking it and go, geez, like I'm really good at this, because it is our higher self, let's call it, or the forces that may be like nudging us in whatever direction we're supposed to go. And I did this for quite a while, and I was pretty impressed with myself. Geez, I knew this was gonna be good. I knew,
Right.
and that's nice. It's like practice, like with everything, right? You just got to practice and just,
And how many times do
yeah,
people say
that's
that?
one way of trusting ourselves.
How many times do people say that even without exploring the way that we're exploring? I knew that was going to happen. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And they
yeah,
did. But they don't
yeah,
understand that, yeah, you knew that was going to happen.
mm, yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
Usually it's
like
in
I
some
said, it's so
challenging
cool.
situation, right? Somebody did something that they didn't like, right? Whatever it might
Mm,
happen to be, or they did something that someone suggested, and then it turns out badly, and they go, "I knew that was going to happen," and they try to make it about the other person made them do it, right? But of course, they made the choice. But what they miss is
yeah,
that they did. They knew that it wasn't going to turn out well if they did that, but they
yeah,
walk right past that. They don't go, "Yeah, pay
mm,
attention. You knew that that was going to happen, right?" And
yeah,
so it is so much that, it's a natural part of all of us,
yeah.
and all it really takes, like we're talking about, is just paying attention to it because it's always
Mm.
there.
And that's what meditation is so great, right? I mean, meditation
Yeah.
just gives you that break. It gives your mind that break. It allows you to just be a little bit still and to hear what the subtleties throughout the day a bit easier. Meditations is something we should all be doing.
Yeah. I don't
And I
think,
speak to so many people, and like they go, yeah, I can't meditate, I can't. And I get it, I completely get it. But not being able to meditate is a great sign that you are, that you're on your way to doing it. It's even the best meditators can't stop thinking all the time. So even if you really struggle, I mean, there's different kinds of meditation too. There's all kind, but it's a good idea to even do 5 minutes a day or whatever it is that you can do, because that's a very good entrance into all of this that we are speaking about, right? To
right. And
understanding all
that's
of
where
this.
I, when you said that, I thought about something that you said earlier too, about all the various ways that you can meditate. One of the things that I found incredibly powerful in my life is that if you have a problem like that, get out in nature and just
Yeah.
be in nature. I know that
Mm,
when I first started doing that, I could tangibly feel when I'll just say it like this, the energy that I had as I first got there left, and my
right.
experience of where I was became something different. And so
Mm,
that doesn't take needing to stop your thinking or anything like that. All you have to do is be there, be present in your experience, not hurry through the experience, and just be open to everything that's happening around you, all your experiences.
yeah.
It's a really powerful place to be able to capture those still parts of yourself, those parts of you that can talk to you and share information with you. It's really nice. So yeah, it's a very
I
important
love
thing, I
that.
think.
And it's a very good actually suggestion, that because a lot of people struggle meditating, but being out in nature, and almost everybody, I think everybody enjoys being out in nature too. Some
Right.
people don't enjoy meditating, But on the being in nature, I just spent a year and a half in Argentina. Came back like 6 months ago, but we were in a forest, like tons of trees, in a house, like beautiful. And so I spent a lot of time in the forest, but I started hugging trees. And I tell you,
Guilty as
it
well.
is incredible. Yeah, but it's really like, the first time you do it, you feel quite silly. But I tell you, when you hug this tree, I mean, for me, I felt like the tree was hugging me back. I felt this tree telling me, thank you, thank you for hugging me, thank you for acknowledging me. And it was just because if you think about it, even physically, right, you're next to this natural living thing. And
Right.
your energies, are mixing right there. And so, like plants vibrate quite high. And so it is affecting you physically. I'm sure people can measure this. So, and also just the experience of hugging a tree is, it's quite weird, when you first do it, and you're so close to nature, like not just like your whole body is right there and you feel the bark, and it's pretty amazing. So I I encourage people to try that one, and things like that, like putting your hands in the ground, like proper
Yeah.
feeling the sand, as if you can go deep into the ground, or being in the river. I also find that if you are in a river, if you can sit in a rock, like in the middle of a river, it's very cleansing, like the water sort of rushes past.
That's
It's like,
nice.
it's quite a cleansing thing. Yeah. I did a
Just
lot of
walking
that.
in bare feet.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yep, I've
that's
had great experiences
great.
like that. Yeah, yeah. You forget about those things, you know.
Yeah.
When you're a
You
kid,
forget
so
about
many
it.
times you can run around with your bare feet, right? And then someplace
Yeah.
in your early adulthood, you put shoes on and you never take them off, unless you're in your house.
Yeah.
You don't walk on the ground in bare feet any longer. It's like, take your shoes off.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things I did was, there's this 8,000 acre forest that's pretty close to my home. It's about 30 minutes, and I do a lot of walking there, and
Mm,
it had rained. It had just rained. And so I went purposely to walk in my bare feet through all the mud and the water and stuff like that. And man, it's just a fantastic
nice.
experience. And I
Yeah.
remember, one of the first times that I directly interacted with nature and had an immediate response is I was finishing up a walk, and I just kind of turned to all of that expanse in the place I just mentioned. And I just internally said, thank you. I really appreciate it. And it wasn't a wind, but it was like a wind. It came back immediately, and I could feel the appreciation of me having been there as part of that
That's
whole
beautiful.
experience. It was incredible. It was really, really nice. And I would have that happen as the years went by, but so many other things would occur when I was there. It's
Mm,
just, to me, it's a very incredible place to become more deeply connected with you and the energy of the planet
yeah.
that we live on, in all the ways that that's expressed. It's really, really so nice.
I agree.
So I don't know how long you would like to do this. We've done it for a little over an hour now. Do you want to kind of tie it up right now, or what would you like to do?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we
Okay.
can tie it up.
All
It's
right. That
better
sounds good. Right.
for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
listeners.
So is there anything in the end that you would like to share with everybody as we do this? I know you've offered a lot of information about what you're doing and why you do it. Is there any little thing at the end that you want to add, or do you think you feel pretty good about everything right now?
I mean, I guess I would like to encourage people to go to oracle.com, uh, and try out a channeling session. It's Orykl,
Nice.
and just to try the experience, and make sure that you write, as I said, the questions that will be really the most beneficial to you. When you sign up, we do give you some suggestions of questions that would be, those are our suggestions, but it could be anything, and there's no limits to what you can ask. It could
Right.
be really the most mundane thing, the most intense thing, the most private thing. There's no limit. It's also for everybody, and yeah, and go with intention to get the most out of it. And I really think it's probably the best therapy session you'll ever have. And yeah, and give it a go, and hopefully it empowers you, it helps you, it makes you feel good, and yeah, and teaches you something that you can take for the rest of your life. Yeah.
One of the things that I've come to understand about channeled sources is that because when they interact with an individual, they understand the nature of your challenge so very thoroughly that the compassion that they have and the
Mm.
depth of connectivity that they share when you ask them a question. And so I'll make the suggestion that for everybody to feel like they can ask even the most personal things in that setting, because the information that'll be shared with you will be incredibly impactful, but it'll be incredibly understanding as well. And so, yeah, if you're
Oh yeah.
very challenged with things, you can safely do that. And I'll just say that, when I first became familiar with you and some of the individuals that were on your platform, of course I went and I listened to those individuals, and I found that they were excellent sources of information. So again, from my background, the experience that I've had, and when I've looked at the some of the people that you've got on your platform, I said, oh yeah, they're doing a great job. So yeah, absolutely, I would suggest, don't
Good.
hesitate. Go and check it out.
Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's just so amazing to chat to you. And,
Yes, it
I
was
really
very nice to
enjoyed it a
have
lot.
you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So I hope you have a
Okay.
great day, and we will talk in the future.
Thank you so much. Have a great
Okay.
day, you too.
All right. Take
Bye
care.
bye.